This tutorial will walk you through the basics of invoicing in Assistance PSA. Once completed, you will know how to invoice a single project and execute batch invoicing. In Assistance PSA, there are two ways to bill your projects. You can do it one project at a time, or you can do it via a batch and invoice multiple projects at a time. In both cases, the process is simple and easy. Just remember that if your organization is set up with one or multiple approval steps, your hours will need to be approved in order to be invoiced. And if hours have been put on hold, they will not be selected in the billing process. Now let's take a look at how this is done in Assistance PSA. Navigate to the Project module, click Projects, and open one in the list display. We will start with the process of billing a single project. Now go to the top bar and hit the Invoice button. PSA will bring you the list of all your billable items. By default, the name of your project will appear in the invoice description. You can change it, however, for the description of your choice. In the next field, the date displayed will always be the last day of the previous week, but you can also change the selection here. Now, let's take a look at the table below. Let's start with the first line. This item is checked as time and material. This means that the number in the amount column corresponds to the actual hours booked to the item. The value displayed in the very next column is actually the percentage of completion of the item. And since the financial agreement is time and material, it has no influence on the amount to be invoiced. So far, $660 have been billed to the client. And the proposed amount for this invoice is approximately $3,300. This corresponds to the number of booked hours covered by the billing period defined in the invoice header. By default, the value in the next column corresponds to the proposed amount. And when the project item is time and material, it is not possible to overwrite the number here. Finally, the column Billable Expenses will remain blank here, since the item is not an expense item. Going back to the very first column, click on the magnifying glass. PSA will display the detail of the hours selected on this invoice for this project item. Because the hours have been approved, you do not have the option to modify the lines here. You can decide, however, to put them on hold. Check the first line and click OK. You will notice that the proposal amount has changed. It now excludes the hours put on hold. This project item was automatically pre-selected by PSA because it had approved hours in the billing period defined in the header. If you uncheck this box, you will exclude it from the invoice. This is not what you want here. Click the box again in order to select the item. Now, let's take a look at the second line. This line is not checked as time and material because the item is fixed price. This means that the number in the amount column corresponds to your selling amount. And this time, the percentage of completion of your project item will determine the percentage of the amount to be invoiced. PSA will then look at what has already been billed and calculate the difference. And it is this number that it will display in the proposal column. If you want to invoice a different amount, you have two options. You can enter here a different percentage and let PSA calculate the new amount, or you can enter a different amount directly in the column Invoice. PSA will accept the modification and process the invoice accordingly. Now click the magnifying glass. Because this is a fixed price item, you will not access the detail of the actual hours. These hours have no influence on the billing process, and as such, there is no reason to put them on hold. Finally, this line was also pre-selected by PSA because the amount invoiced so far no longer corresponded to the percentage of completion of the project item. Here again, unchecking the box would deselect the item. If you need to invoice a fixed price item that is not pre-selected, simply enter a value in the percentage column and let PSA calculate the amount. Another option would have been to enter an amount directly in the invoice column. In both cases, PSA will automatically select the line for invoicing purposes. Note that this is not possible for a time and material item. PSA will only invoice actual hours booked in the billing period defined in the header. Now let's take a look at some expense items. In this example, these items are located at the end of your project breakdown structure. You can use the scroll bar to display them, or you can use the filter function, which is available in the header of each column. You want to filter by description. Click the button and select the project items that you want to see. Now click back in the table screen. Your two items are now displayed. The first one is a billable expense item. This amount represents actual costs booked in the period covered by the billing date of the invoice header. You can uncheck the box if you wish to exclude the line from this invoice. The second line is a fixed price item, and as such you can modify the percentage to be invoiced or enter a new amount in the invoice field. Now click the filter again and clear the parameters. Your breakdown structure is fully displayed again. You have completed the review of your project items and their respective amounts to be invoiced. Now click OK to generate your invoice. In the next screen, you will notice that PSA has identified your document with an ID number. It hasn't, however, assigned an invoice number yet. This field will remain blank until the invoice is actually approved. Only then will it be given its number. The name field here is mandatory. By default, PSA has displayed the invoice ID combined with the invoice description entered in the previous screen. You can, if you want, change the description again. Best practice, however, is to leave it as is. The customer and currency fields are also mandatory and have been copied directly from the project, also displayed here. Finally, the price list field is specific to CRM, and the value displayed here must be left unchanged. In the next section, you will find the detail of your line items. This is where you can write time up or down for the hours that are time and material. Let's see how this works. The second item is time and material based. Click on the line to view the details. In the new screen, go to the pricing section and change the number of the quantity field. Now save the data. The amount field has been updated. One important notion to remember: whatever change you make here, it will only affect the invoice line item. The actual hours of the employee will remain the same. This screen will also allow you to change the tax group of the line item. Keep in mind, however, that best practice is always to modify the tax directly at the item level of the project. Now, go back to the invoice screen and click on the first line item. Go to the left section and click Invoice Line Tax. PSA will bring you to the breakdown structure of your taxes, with the percentage and actual amounts invoiced for this line item. Now click General and use the scroll bar to display the Totals section. You will find here the total amount of your invoice, including tax. You have completed the creation of your invoice. Save and close the window. Back to the project screen, go to Invoices and click on the link. You will find here your newly created document. Your next step now is to get it approved. Navigate to the CRM Sales module and click Invoice. Go to the List Display menu and select Approve Invoices. This view is delivered out of the box by PSA. It will display all the invoices waiting to be approved according to your security rights and user settings. Now select your document and click the button Approve Invoices. Your document has been approved It is no longer in the list display. If you change the view again to All Invoices, you will see a Yes in the Approved column of your invoice. Now that you know how to invoice a single project, you will learn how to execute batch invoicing. You can find the functionality in two places. In the Project module under Projects, you will see the icon in the top bar of the screen. Or in the CRM Sales module under Invoices. The icon will be right next to the Approval button. Now let's see how this works. Click the functionality. PSA will bring you the list of all your billable projects. By default, it will display your time and material projects only. If you click on the drop-down menu, you will see that you can also batch invoice your recurring items. Note that this specific type of item is not covered in this tutorial. It is the subject of a separate course. As for the fixed price projects, they are based on milestones and as such require that you review the details of each line prior to billing. This can only be done via single project invoicing. The date displayed here will always be the last day of the previous week, but you can change the selection if you want. Now let's take a look at the table below. Each line will give you the project, account, and amount to be invoiced for the project. From here, all you need to do is check the projects you wish to bill and click OK. PSA will start generating the invoices. Once they are created, click OK and close the window. Now change the view of the list display to Approve Invoices. You will find your newly created documents here. Click on a line. PSA will open up the invoice for your review. From here, simply follow the same steps as with the single billing process. You are now ready to invoice your projects. Your next step is to do the exercises defined in the lab Invoicing.